Hey everybody, Autumn McAtee here, and today we're going to be tying the casual dress. In order to tie the casual dress, super simple fly, you're going to need muskrat fur and the dubbing from it, black thread, some black ostrich, as well as a size 10 to 12 hook. I love how simple this fly is. We're really only using two materials, muskrat fur and black ostrich. To get started, we're going to take our black thread and lay down just a nice thread body on the shank of our hook to prevent any slippage of material. I'm going to start back from the eye of the hook and work our way the whole way back to the bend of the hook. And obviously when you do this, you're going to try to not catch any of the thread on the hook itself, which I did. So our first component of the fly is going to be the tail. We need muskrat guard hairs without the under fur to use as our tail. So I'm going to take a section of the muskrat fur and clip it off with my fur scissors. And then pull out all of the under fur, and we're going to save the under fur to use to dub the body. And pulling out the under fur from a muskrat is more tedious than I ever thought it would be. They've got a lot, and I don't think muskrats have ever had a problem staying warm or dry. So now that I've got all the under fur out, I'm just going to measure it up and make sure I've got enough guard hairs that it will look like a worthwhile tail, as well as that it's the right length. And that's looking a little sparse to me, so I'm going to clip another section. Just to make sure that I've got enough. And again, I'm going to pull out all the under fur and set that aside additionally so I can use that to dub the body. I'm a little more aggressive with it this time, so it comes out hopefully faster, and it sure did. So I'll take this piece as well as the piece of my hackle pliers, and hopefully these together will make a suitable tail. I think they will. I'm going to pull out that real one outlier, and I think that looks much better. So I'm going to tie that in onto the shank of the hook and adjust it as I see fit. I really do like the casual dress. It's a really easy fly to tie. You don't need a lot of materials, and they look great at the end. So after my tail is tied in, and make sure it's tight, I'm going to clip off that excess and set it aside. And then just a couple more tight wraps. And we're going to bring our thread back to the base of the tail and prepare to dub our thread. And with dubbing, I've learned that less is always more. So all that under fur that you pulled out from when we were making the tail, you're going to twist onto the thread. And we want to taper it from small to big. So I'm going to start with a little bit at the top and then work my way down to a larger section at the bottom of my dubbing noodle, I guess you could call it. And we'll make sure it's tightly wrapped so that I don't have a whole bunch of strays. And muskrat fur is really nice to use as dubbing. And I'm making a pretty long dubbing noodle, but I've got a longer shank hook to cover, so that is why. and you can add dubbing in places that you see fit. And then boom, would you look at that, a beautiful muskrat dubbing noodle. So you're going to try to not do what I just did and catch it on the hook again, but you're going to start at the base of the tail and just work your way up the body, trying to make it look tapered as possible. And I apologize for this being out of focus. Definitely kind of had me feeling like a silly goose with these super exaggerated wraps. Then I'm going to work to the front. I've got to leave room for our muskrat fur collar as well as the ostrich head. I can adjust my dubbing as needed and pull out any guard hairs that I might have missed. And then I've got enough to work it back over the body again for a nice taper to the tail. I really like how that looks. And then 2 pretty light wraps up to the front. And I also apologize for this being out of focus. I just need a little bit more at the front to back up my fur collar. And obviously I needed to wrap that tighter. So there we go. The next part is no doubt probably the most complicated part of this fly, but I'm confident that I can do it, and if you're watching this, you can probably do it too. So I chose this spool of thread because the fibers separate really easily, and we need to make a dubbing loop in order to add the muskrat fur collar. So I'm going to twist the thread to see if I can get it to loosen up and allow me to separate the fibers so that I'm able to slide a flat piece of muskrat fur in between the fibers of the thread so it'll hold. And so I'm going to take a nice even as I can get flat chunk of muskrat fur. I'm going to keep the underfur and the guard hairs. I'm not pulling anything out this time. And I'm going to trim it off with my fur scissors and square it off at the end. And as you can see, I did a great job keeping it even and squaring it off, but it's fine. And I'm going to put that in my tweezers and try to make it as flat as possible. And it doesn't really have to be even on the ends or anything. It's going to be kind of a rough looking collar. And as I figure out which direction I need to go in to separate these thread fibers, I'm going to use my bod and also my fingers. And I'm going to poke myself with my bod. And a half inch is absolutely necessary after the dubbing body that I just did, just in case I break my thread while I'm trying to separate the fibers. So use the tip of my bod to get in there and try to separate those fibers, which works surprisingly well. The other thread that I used the first time that I tied these did not separate quite as nicely as this does, and unfortunately there's no brand name on it. But trying to separate these fibers evenly with an even amount of fibers on both sides, I feel like that'll make it stronger. As you can see, I'm kind of getting it here. I only have one fiber separated from all of the others, so I'm trying to get in the middle to pull them apart. And I think I finally got it here. There we go. Beautiful. And then we're going to take that flat piece of muskrat that you got in, and I'm going to put it, I'm just going to lay it real nice and as flat as possible between the separated fibers of the thread. And then I'm going to, when that holds, I'm going to take and twist my bobbin I'm twisting it clockwise, and it's going to sort of make the fur spin around on itself and give the look of a really nice, sort of rough, natural collar. As you can see, as I'm rotating the bobbin, the muskrat fur is also turning, and it's going to give us a really good look for our collar. So since that looks nice and fluffy, we're going to take and do some good old wraps. And as we get it laid down onto the fly, we're going to do our best to hold and pull back while wrapping the rest of it. And it's going to kind of resemble the collar that you'd get from grizzly hackle, or tying in any type of hackle really, but with fur. And very nice. I think it worked very well. And as you continue to tie it in, keep pulling it back as you tie in so that it angles itself back and looks like a true collar. I think it looks really great. So with a few more tight wraps, just to lay it down a little bit more, definitely trying to make it look perfect. And then obviously a half hitch to save my work, because I don't want to lose that. And it's out of focus, but we're back. So after I finally decide that I'm happy with the way that it looks, which sometimes takes longer than others, the last part of our fly is going to be the head. And to do that, we're going to use black ostrich. And we're going to pick a nice sort of long piece, because I'd like the head to look fairly full. And we're going to clip off the very end of that feather. And then, then we're going to tie it in at the front of that muskrat collar. But first, we're going to pull all of the fibers downward so that it makes it even fluffier. And then I tie that in, maybe, and make sure I pull back so it's not lingering over that eye of the hook too much, but still keeping it close. Then I'm going to continue to pull back that collar as I'm wrapping. And I've got a good feeling I'm going to get a couple back and forth layers, since I picked such a nice long piece of ostrich. And the tip is really delicate, so I've got to make sure that I've got enough to tie off. And I really like how that looks. So with a couple of thread wraps just to secure it at the front of the hook. I'm going to whip finish right at the end, if I can do that. There we go. All right. Make my 4 and then wrap it around 4 or 5 times. And secure it. I'm going to clip off my thread, and any excess that I've got on there, I've got a little tiny bit of ostrich just hanging over the eye, but no biggie. And our last step is just adding a drop of head cement. And there you have it, the casual dress. Thanks for watching.